Hello, friends. You're listening to No Small Endeavor. This is our unabridged interview with Sharon McMahon. Sharon McMahon is a teacher, an educator, an author, writer, and she has accumulated a following of about 1.3 million followers who are known as the Governors, because Sharon is a commentator on how government and law ought to work in the American democracy. She's had a fascinating rise as a deeply respected voice in American political and legal commentary. And we had a lovely conversation. We discussed her new book, The Small and the Mighty, which was an instant New York Times bestseller. And if you enjoy listening to Sharon, we hope that you will come to Nashville the Sunday evening prior to Thanksgiving and join us as Sharon comes to our big end-of-year blowout live show, No Small Endeavor Live at the Skirmerhorn Symphony Hall. It'll be a marvelous night. Come join us. This is our lovely interview with Sharon McMahon. Enjoy. Hey, friend, if you didn't know, I started a newsletter a while back that comes out every 2 weeks. I've been delighted to hear from so many of you about positive response to the newsletter. We call it the No Small Endeavor Notebook, where I riff on themes and topics related to our podcast, giving you additional material for thinking and doing in your own quest to make sense of what it might mean to live a good life. Join us by going now to nosmallendeavor.com and sign up there. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com to sign up now for our free No Small Endeavor Notebook newsletter. Hey, my friends, have you ever wondered what's actually in your tap water? The truth is, contaminated water can look totally clear while still carrying pollutants that pose real health risks. And here's another surprise. Many common fridge and pitcher filters barely touch the most harmful contaminants. Some bottled water even contains microplastics. So, what can you do? Consider AquaTrue, the countertop water purifier trusted by thousands. It's been independently tested and certified to remove 84 different contaminants, including chlorine, lead, PFAS, forever chemicals, and microplastics. Its patented 4-stage reverse osmosis system delivers exceptionally pure, healthy water without any plumbing or installation. AquaTrue has been featured in Business Insider and Popular Science, and Good Housekeeping named it the best countertop water filter. And customers agree. 98% say that their water is cleaner, safer, and healthier. Plus, it comes with a 30-day best-tasting water guarantee. Head to aquatrue.com now to get 20% off your purifier with promo code NSE. That's aquatrue.com. AQUATRU.com. Promo code NSE.
Every Christmas, I think about the gifts that really matter. Not the wrapped ones under the tree, but the ones that change someone's life forever. And recently, I heard a story from Mercy Ships that I just can't shake. A mom brought her little boy on board. He'd been living with a condition that could be fixed with a simple surgery, but there was no surgeon anywhere near his village. After his free operation, she said, "You've given my son his future back." Y'all, that is a Christmas gift. Globally, 5 billion people lack access to surgical care. In sub-Saharan Africa, there's only one surgeon for every 200,000 people. But Mercy Ships is stepping into that gap in the most beautiful way, bringing free, life-transforming surgeries to people who would otherwise have no access to care. They help the blind see. They straighten twisted limbs. They remove deadly tumors. They treat cleft conditions and so much more. With state-of-the-art hospital ships, they provide safe surgery for children and adults completely free of charge. And it's all powered by an all-volunteer crew of surgeons, nurses, engineers, cooks, people who give their time and talents to make the world better. And here's where we get to help. Your donation provides free, safe surgeries to people in desperate need of hope. This Christmas, you can make your impact felt, and every gift is matched. Please donate today at mercyships.org/podcast. That's mercyships.org/podcast.
Sharon McMahon, widely known as America's government teacher, is an award-winning educator and a trusted guide to civic life. She rose to national prominence during the 2020 election for her calm, factual breakdowns of government and law, amassing an immense community known as the Governors. Her debut book, The Small and the Mighty, became an instant #1 Amazon bestseller and a #1 New York Times bestseller. Sharon is also the host of the top-ranked podcast, Here's Where It Gets Interesting, and the creator of The Preamble, a widely read, nonpartisan newsletter that now reaches more readers than nearly every print newspaper in America. Welcome, Sharon.
So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Very pleased to have you with us, and we're looking forward to you coming to Nashville in November.
I know. I'm very excited. First of all, I love Nashville. We've actually been talking about doing this for a year, like almost 2 years.
Yes.
So I'm so happy to see this finally come to fruition, and I'm really excited.
I am as well. So so anybody that wants to come see Sharon, join us in our big end of year blowout show here in Nashville, No Small Endeavor Live, which we have every year, the Sunday night prior to Thanksgiving. This year it will be at the spectacular Schermerhorn Symphony Hall, and we'll have a full, outstanding Nashville house band, some surprise vocalists, and Sharon, and it'll just be a lovely night. So we're really grateful you can come. Both folks can get, I've been asked to let people know they can get tickets by going to our website, nosmallendeavor.com. People who are members of NSC Plus can get immediate pre-show access to tickets, and then they'll all be going on sale to the general public on August 11. So go out, check that out today, and come join Sharon and myself here in November 23. Well, I gave the introduction, not a formal introduction to Sharon McMahon, but I would like to begin by asking how do you describe what you do?
I've always struggled. I've long struggled with an elevator pitch because I have my fingers in so many different little pies. The broad overarching term that I think, makes sense in my mind is educator, but because that's my academic background. That's my, the cradle of my professional background. It's the sort of the genesis story of everything that I do now is related to my background as a teacher. But I spent a lot of my time writing. I spend a lot of my day writing and editing. And so, maybe it's time for a title change into author. But there isn't one great answer that I can give you with what how I structure my day. But it's all it's very mission driven. Everything I do is driven by a mission. And so I do think that my mission definitely plays into all the different activities that I choose to engage in.
Yeah. How would you describe that mission?
To me, I guess one of the best ways I would describe it is that we don't have a place for people to go who want... I'm not being very articulate about this. So much of our discussion about history, about government, about politics is really rooted in political identity. And that political identity has changed over the years to become more important to many people than even their religious faith. That's not my opinion. That's borne out by multiple studies that say political identity is a better harbinger of understanding somebody than how they might identify as, an evangelical Christian or a Methodist or a Jew or whatever that might be. So there's not a place to discuss these issues. This is what I found, that is not attached to a political identity. And in addition to that, my goal is in part to give people a home to talk about those things. But it's also important to me that we don't get stuck in an amoral environment in which all ideas are equally good, in which all possible outcomes are worth considering, in which people are dehumanized, in which we don't appeal to the better angels of our nature. My goal is to always have a bright moral compass infused through everything that I do.
Yeah. In a moment, I want to discuss some of the potential challenges that you just began to point to in a so-called nonpartisan approach. But before we get there, let me ask a follow-up about your mission there and ask, Why has that mission become important to you? What is there in your life story that led you to that place of giving that such importance?
Honestly, it's from my time in the classroom. That's what good teachers are doing on a daily basis. Most most teachers that I have worked with, most teachers that I know, would rather have a student who is a really excellent critical thinker who arrives at a different conclusion than maybe the teacher might hold, and can articulate that, and it's well reasoned. It's not just a parroting of talking points. They would rather have that as a student that they graduate out
Right.
into the world than somebody who can just memorize a list of facts.
Yeah.
And the only way to get to that point, the only way to build those critical thinkers is to be able to sort of sort through these issues in a way that is not like, now, children, memorize the talking points of the Democratic Socialists of America. I think that's legitimately what so many people think teachers are doing
Right.
on a daily basis, and it's not.
Yeah.
So that's honestly where it comes from. Is it from a joy in teaching? And I
Yeah.
know you know what a joy and a pleasure it is to teach students. It truly is a joy and a pleasure when you are an educator.
Yes.
And
Yes.
to me, that's the genesis of where all of
Yeah.
this comes from.
That's very well said. So, as I have spent some time getting acquainted with your work and looked at a variety of your outputs, I thought I'm just going to see if I can come up with a list of what I think are recurring themes, what I see bubble up repeatedly.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'd love to hear.
Can I share with you that
Please
list?
do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
So first, I see in you a call to intellectual humility. That is, that issues are often complicated, and you shouldn't be fearful of complexity and nuance. Second, history honors the doers, not the mere critics and talkers. 3, your focus, taking the title of your book, The Small and the Mighty, that is, contribute what you've got for the sake of the good of our community and our neighbors. 4th, to work alongside with, even learn to love presumed enemies. And 5th, work at and develop the courage to tell the truth in public and to do so without outrage. What did I miss? Or which of those wouldn't be on your list?
Those are all very astute observations. I appreciate hearing that. It's you never get to see yourself through other people's eyes, right? Except for the people who send you hate messages about how ugly you are. So I appreciate that, especially as an academic. I know that you gave it some thought. So I wouldn't say that I disagree with any of those. I do, as a big recurring theme of my work is, nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something. And we cannot allow our inability to solve all of the world's problems paralyze us into doing nothing. And I think that is often the place we find ourselves in this moment of, being so chronically online, where we're so surrounded by a fire hose of information, that the paralysis, the mental paralysis, the compassion fatigue is very, very real. And I don't think our brains are hardwired to be able to withstand this amount of incoming bad news. We don't know how to make sense of it. We feel as this innate human drive. I do think humans innately want to help each other. This is how we have, developed in complex, interdependent societies. This is how we've survived. We innately want to help each other. And so it triggers this when we see the misfortune of others or we see an injustice. It triggers in us this desire to help. But then what happens is we realize we bump up against our own capacity. We bump up against our own financial and time resources, our own intellectual resources, and we realize, like, how am I supposed to do everything about every famine, every flood, every fire, every lawsuit, every person who's been wrongfully convicted? Like, what do I owe the world? And it is easy to get so overwhelmed and bogged down in the enormity of the world's problems that we just are like, I can't even decide what to do next.
Yeah. In thinking about people who have been proactive in that way and made a contribution to the world, where do you remember in your own kind of autobiographical narrative first being moved by someone who didn't let themselves get overwhelmed, but exercised courage, took what they had, and exercised it for the common good.
Well, I think most of us can think about stories in our own personal lives where we have encountered a situation where we're like, I don't know why that person helped me, but they did. There was a time when I was a super poor college student and I was working two jobs, and I had a car. My car, I grew up in a really cold northern climate where you have to salt the roads really aggressively to make them passable. And my car had so much rust that it had literally eaten holes in the floor of the car. And that's not an exaggeration. I had pieces of cardboard on the floor of my car. I worked hard to save up my money, and I paid $500 for that car. Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. And this was not in the year 1924. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not that old. So that just shows you how the kind of condition we're talking about here. So I'm trying to go to college and I'm trying to work multiple jobs. And it was like impossible to try to keep a roof over my head and keep up with my very demanding schoolwork. I was studying, taking all these constitutional law classes, which required like an insane amount of reading really difficult Supreme Court cases and then being ready to talk about them intelligently the next day. So I definitely remember this moment where I was getting off of my job and I was just feeling very sort of like dejected and overwhelmed. And I got out to my car and opened the door of my car. And when I opened the door, what fluttered down onto the seat of my car was a $100 bill. I still to this day don't know where that came from. Obviously, somebody put it there, and they got into my car somehow, which, by the way, the doors didn't lock, and it had no radio, Lee. It had no radio and the doors didn't lock. And it was very much go ahead and steal what? Nothing? Steal nothing from this car. There's nothing to steal. They had gotten into my car and left me $100 anonymously. And, I wasn't homeless. I wasn't destitute, but they obviously knew that I needed it. And I can think of a lot of examples of times in my own life and times in the lives of others where someone has just done for one person what they wish they could do for everybody.
Yeah.
And that feeling has stuck with me over the years. And I won't belabor the point, but the feeling of somebody helped me just because they could.
Right. Yeah.
I'm still carrying that forward.
Yeah, that's a beautiful line. Someone did for one person what they wish they could do for everybody. That's beautiful. And I'm flashing back to a very beautiful moment when my wife and I were young marrieds, and we one day had decided we cannot continue to spend on credit, and it's getting us in this pile of debt that we must stop. And so we had made this commitment, and then our car broke down and needed a $495 repair. Mm-hmm. And we came home one day from church, and someone, without me telling anybody this, somebody had left 5 $100 bills rolled up with a rubber band in the doorway. And so it was just this sort of, and I still don't know who that was. But I've always remembered that kind of kindness. They somehow picked up that, they could use some help. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a very moving thing of paying things forward. So what about some of these other kind of thinking about a sort of working alongside, even to learn, maybe to love or at least honor presumed enemies? Where's that kind of bubble up in your life story?
Well, it certainly still exists even in my own family. There are still, if I'm thinking back to where, the first moment that I can think of this concept of you're going to have to make it or break it. when it comes to this relationship or this person in your life. That has always been a theme in my own personal family. And it remains a theme in my family. I have not solved the issue. And I think a lot of times people come to me looking for, like, how do I fix my relationship with my uncle? And I can certainly give them some tips, but there is still a chance that at the end of the day, it won't be fixed today. Yeah. It won't be fixed today. But that doesn't mean it won't be fixed tomorrow. So we, I think it's important to hold on to, that sort of hope for the future. But there has never been a time in my life that I can remember everyone in my family getting along. That's never happened. And in some cases, it meant a disintegration of relationship between siblings, or a disintegration of relationship between parent and child. And in other cases, it meant a détente, where they just came to sort of an uneasy peace with each other. And, peacefully coexisted at Thanksgiving. And in other times, it really did result in a relationship being mended. And all of those scenarios have something to teach us. They all have something important to teach us. And, the more I learn about history, history's always been a very interesting subject for me. And I grew up a block from a library, and so spent a lot of time at the library, and was able to really follow all of my inborn natural curiosities at the library. And I mentioned this in my book, even, that there was this librarian at the library whose name was Mary, who she recognized me when I came in. As a very small little library, and she would always help me find things that I was looking for if I couldn't find it myself. And she always smiled when I continued checking out the same books over and over. I did. I checked out the same books over and over. I checked out the same American Sign Language encyclopedia probably 20 times. That was very interesting to me. But I digress. The more I learned about history, the more I saw that history really was full of people who learned to work together for the good of their communities, despite an extremely fractious and contentious history together, personal history together, or broader communal history together, where somebody was actively working to harm a community that somebody was part of. The more I learn, the more I see evidence that that is how real progress is made. It is real progress does not generally come, with a few exceptions, and there are a few exceptions, but real progress does not generally come from beating back your enemies. The World War IIs of the world are very unique in history, where there is a clear ideological enemy, right? A very clear, like, the Nazis are no good. And that's the reason we have over 9,000 books written about World War II. This is a topic that endlessly fascinates people, the battle of good versus evil playing out in the real world. That's not most conflicts. That's not most conflicts. And that is not how most people have made progress in the world. That's not how women got the right to vote. That's not how the Black community gained civil rights. That's not how we now have the 14th Amendment. It's not from completely blowing your competition off the face of the planet. It's not from playing a zero-sum game.
Yeah. So, we alluded to this a moment ago, but let's jump into this question about some of the challenges that arise from trying to take a nonpartisan approach. And, at first glance, I think for a lot of folks, the notion of nonpartisan kind of seems somewhat non-controversial. But let's kind of unpack that just a bit. And first tell us, at best, what does nonpartisan mean to you? And then second, what are some of the challenges that arise in seeking to be nonpartisan? What's maybe the question I'm asking you is, what kind of inner dialogue and debate do you have in your own mind about being nonpartisan?
Yeah, well, to me, partisanship is blind allegiance to a person or a party or a viewpoint without critical examination, without being willing to consider alternative viewpoints. And I just think that that is, in many ways, the root of our ills. Right, like you can go back to Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams. That's really the first place you see it before then, but this is like one of the most contentious elections in American history up until that point. And the amount of name calling and mudslinging and this kind of stuff that arose from that election. So to me, that's what partisanship means. And I don't belong to a political party. I actually don't give a crap about political parties. I have zero. I don't care if the Republicans succeed in terms of like, yay, I really hope the Republican Party wins all the elections. No, I hope good, moral people win elections and that we can have legitimate debates about a variety of possible ways to solve problems. That's what I hope. I don't have any allegiance to the Democratic Party for the same reason. Minnesota doesn't require you to register with a political party to participate in primary elections. This is one of my beefs with the primary election process around the country. I think everybody should be like Minnesota. So many people tell me, like, I can't get on board with either of these parties, and so I can't participate in primary elections. And that seems like unfairly punitive to them, and I understand where they're coming from. So I don't belong to a party. I don't give money to a party. Journalists have tried to uncover my secret party alliances and have come up short. Like The Atlantic did a profile of me, and they're like, I spent several months trying to find out if Sharon was, in fact, ran several, political Facebook groups in which she hates Donald Trump, or Sharon actually gave money to the blah, blah, blah Democratic candidate. And I didn't come up with anything. Well, you didn't come up with anything because it doesn't exist. So good luck. Thanks for trying. Thanks for playing our game. I think the party system desperately needs reform in the United States. But what nonpartisanship is not, it is not a belief that all candidates, all beliefs, all concepts, all ideas are equally valid and should be given equal time, attention, and weight, and that there should be we should not steer someone towards an idea that aligns with the principles of democracy or aligns with moral values. Having complete neutrality actually is harmful, in my opinion. What you want is objective. There's a difference between objective and neutral. Neutrality in the face of oppression always favors the oppressor. It always does. So to me, that's what the difference is it's a complete lack of allegiance to a party or a candidate. I feel more than free to criticize people of all parties, and do. If you're out here hiding gold bars in your pockets at your home and socking away hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash that you're taking from a foreign government while you are a sitting senator, you're going to get called out on it. It doesn't matter which party you belong to. You're committing, identity theft while you're in the United States House of Representatives. I'm going to call you out on it. And to not do that because I belong to X party or Y party, to me, that is far more problematic than requiring a basic tenet of democratic principles that all members of a functioning democracy should be willing to agree to, and that can serve as an objective benchmark against which we can judge behavior.
Yeah.
That is more interesting and useful in my mind.
If you could wave a magic wand and affect one significant policy change in the United States that ideally could be construed as a sort of nonpartisan matter, what would that be?
It's easy. And it's something that the overwhelming majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle would agree with me on. I would get money out of politics. I would change the Constitution because that's the only way to do it. I would change the Constitution to eliminate money from electoral politics. Nearly every other democracy in the world does just that, including democracies that are much healthier than ours, that are not prone to excess factionalism, democracies in which their constituents are better represented. They feel more optimistic, more heard, they feel like their issues are being addressed. Nobody else has a two-party system that is ruled by billionaires. And I don't think that is to our benefit. I don't think that's to our benefit. There's zero evidence that this has made us a better country. The opposite, I think, is true. So if I could do one thing that would radically change America, I would create a constitutional amendment eliminating private money from electoral politics.
So being in this space where you're needing to, or you're seeking to practice a nonpartisan approach while also speaking clearly, forthrightly on things that you believe need to be addressed and in some cases called out. What would you say are habits or dispositions that you have that help you do that kind of work well?
That's a great question. I do think that I have a personality that lends me to it. I'm not naturally prone to being a reactionary. I'm not naturally prone to, feeling like the sky is falling at every turn. When you're easily angered, you're easily manipulated. And you can see that play out in spades throughout America right now. If I can make you afraid or angry, I can manipulate you.
I mean, it seems like that would be helpful if that were emblazoned in every billboard in the country right now, right? If you were easily angered, you were easily manipulated. Yeah. But go ahead. Other habits, dispositions that help you do this well.
Yeah, and I'm not painting myself as some I'm always zen, nothing ever bothers me. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that I have an ability to separate ideas from people. To an extent, there are I will say there are exceptions. But I don't feel like I need to I don't feel personally attacked if you have a different idea than I do. My ideas are not my identity. And so that is maybe something that sets me apart from other people. I couldn't tell you for sure, but I don't cling so tightly to the idea that I am right, that I'm unwilling to consider potential other viewpoints. If you like being right, this is what my friend Adam Grant says. If you like being right, the fastest way to do that is to stop being wrong faster. And if you want to stop being wrong, you have to be able to consider alternative viewpoints. Yeah. So I do think that's perhaps a natural, inborn, personality characteristic that I have developed over many years of standing in front of the toughest audience in the world, which is the American adolescent. There is nobody meaner than a 15-year-old girl, let me tell you. There is nobody meaner. There is nobody more like, that's ugly. There is nobody who can hurt your feelings faster than an adolescent girl. There's nobody more annoying than a 14-year-old boy. And I say that as a parent who has parented both boys and girls. I say that as a teacher, and I genuinely love teenagers. So this is not coming from a place of animosity. I actually really enjoy teenagers. I think they'd agree with you. I think if you said, is there anyone more annoying than a 14-year-old boy? Everyone would be like, no, we're the worst. We're the actual worst. Yes, girls are so mean.
Yeah, I'm flashing back to 7th grade and remembering the algebra teacher that we made cry. And I'm flashing back to the government teacher that we would make so anxious that she would leave class to go take a smoke break because we had worked her up so much. Yes, indeed. Well,
My middle schooler. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a middle schooler who her class was so adept, and she had a foreign language teacher who was an older woman who was a native speaker of this language, and so who was not really a teacher by trade, but who was like, we could really use somebody to teach this language.
Yeah.
And as a native speaker, she did. And she only taught like one period a day or whatever. And this class was so adept at working this woman up that at one point she actually threw herself on the ground, like pretended to fall out of her office chair and said, "Call an ambulance." And the children are like, "What? Call an ambulance. None of you will ever learn to speak this language." Like she was so like she'd reached the end of her rope. She really had reached the end of her rope. Like the only solution was to air quotes call an ambulance. And so, of course, the children being little, they were not nice. They ran to the office and they're like, "Oh, she said call an ambulance," even though they know she's kidding. And so, of course, the administration comes running. If a teacher says call an ambulance, you're not going to ignore that. The administration comes running, and what they find is this really out of control class, and nobody actually having a medical emergency. So anyway, all that to say, that is, if they're given the opportunity, that's what they'll do.
Yeah, that was your crucible that equipped you well for the work that you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
In a recent social media post, you said trolls and death threats are real. They also take a huge toll on creators. I try to remember two things. If they can't keep me from doing it, they will try to keep me from enjoying it. Two, if they can keep me from enjoying it, they will get me to give up on my important work. And then you say, and so I remember my mantras. I refuse to be distracted from my important work. I refuse to let them steal my joy. And then I use the tools and coping mechanisms I need to support that. So my question there is, what are those tools and coping mechanisms that you use?
Well, some of it is repeating the mantra to myself. I refuse to let them steal my joy. I do think that's true. And I don't think that's just me. I honestly think that is wisdom that applies to so many of us, that there are forces that want to keep you from doing good in the world.
Yeah.
And they will, if they can't stop you from doing good, they'll try to make it so it's really not fun. So you want to voluntarily give up.
Right.
They'll steal your joy from it. So some of it is legitimately being like, verbally saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Some of it is self-protective strategies where, like the worse things are, the fewer DMs I read. The less access I give people to me in that sense. I get over 10,000 DMs a day. That's not an exaggeration. It's not a fake number. Sometimes it's more than that. And the more I read them, sometimes, especially during like a really tough moment in what's happening in the world, the more I read them, the more death threats I read. How many death threats do you want to read each day? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I can read 5, and sometimes the number I can read is none. So the more fragile I'm feeling, the fewer DMs I read. I do have a number of grandma hobbies that I engage in regularly, which science demonstrates is as important for your brain as almost anything else. Doing something with your hands is really important to your brain. Whether that's like knitting or needlepointing or cross stitching or cooking or woodworking or, like doing things with your hands is important. I have beautiful gardens at my house. I spend time outside. So I do try to like mentally shut off my engagement with that. And I do recognize, and people always try to say like, not everybody can shut it off. It's a privilege to be able to shut off the complexity of the world around you. I agree. If you are living in a war zone, if you're living in a Nazi death camp, absolutely. Like it is a privilege to live on a dirt road, on a beautiful patch of land with peonies that are blooming. That is a privilege that I am am grateful for. So I am not holding myself up as like, everybody just do what I'm doing. I understand that not everybody is in the same situation.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge that. But I do think that throughout time and space, that even the most marginalized of groups have seen joy as an act of resistance. Jews in Nazi death camps viewed joy as an act of resistance. Like when the Holocaust ended, they felt like the biggest, FU they could give Hitler was to have a bunch of babies and to have a party celebrating every milestone. So like, we're going to celebrate every wedding, every baby, every birthday, every holiday. We're not going to let the fact that everything that just happened, of course, we're going to grieve what we lost, and we're going to examine how we can never let that happen again. But we're not going to let that steal our joy in the future, because joy is in and of itself an act of resistance. And I look too at people that I deeply admire, like Harriet Tubman, who also, she had a fantastic sense of humor. This is something you never learn about people like her in the history books. You look at like, here's a list of facts of her life and 3 things that she did and whatever. She was well known for being funny. Some of the jokes that she would tell her audiences would still make you laugh. She had traumatic brain injury that gave her what we know today is epilepsy, a form of epilepsy, and she would have these what they called fits or spells, where they were almost absent seizures, where you would just kind of stare off into space, or you'd look like you were sleeping. They were not convulsive seizures. And she knew that she had this proclivity. And by the way, side note, she truly believed that those fits or spells, even though she was a disabled American, she truly believed that she was communing with God when she was having these fits and spells, that God was showing her things during these moments of seizures. But she would use it to play tricks on people. She would pretend to be sleeping, like having one of her fits or spells, while everybody else was just like chitter-chattering around her. And then like one eye would pop open and she'd have something to say about, like what everybody else was saying. And they were like,
that's hilarious.
Dang it. So I do think that it's important for us to remember that despite the enormity of the world's problems, that joy in and of itself is an act of resistance.
Yeah, lovely. It has been so delightful to see more and more listeners like you sign up for NSC Plus. Our growing community is made up of intelligent and thoughtful people looking for a holistic approach to human flourishing. Signing up for NSC Plus is also a way to support the show and the work we're doing, and in fact, we depend upon that kind of support. But in addition to supporting the show, you'll get exclusive access to bonus content, and the No Small Endeavor you've come to love will be completely ad-free. In fact, you won't even hear ads like this one. So go to nosmallendeavor.com and click Join NSC Plus to become a member of our community today. Join for as little as $5 a month. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com, click on that red button that says Join NSC Plus to become a member today. So let me turn that most recent question around back the other way. What would you describe as maybe top contenders for your most significant vices in doing the work that you do?
I do think, I have to rein myself in on a daily basis from not posting all the snarky comebacks that my brain comes up with. I have so many great comebacks. I have so many great zingers that I just never, ever, ever, ever get to put anywhere.
I will say that I saw, one of your followers, a governor, referring to you as, Sharon's getting spicy today.
Yeah, Spicy Sharon. Sharon is a persona that I do sometimes allow myself to indulge in.
Yeah.
It's usually not directed at a specific person. I try not to get into a back and forth with a specific person of like, Lee, too bad you're so stupid. I try not to engage in that, but I will sometimes indulge. Like I did post this like 2 days ago. I did post this. Let me pull it up. It says, it's a clip of a video where Gayle King is interviewing Melinda French Gates, and Melinda French Gates is talking about how one of the points of contention between her and Bill Gates that ultimately led to their divorce is that he would not stop associating with Jeffrey Epstein. And you can watch the clip. She talks about how like it really, really bothered her. And so I said, sure glad we spent months reviewing the invisible Epstein files that never existed and for sure aren't real and that nothing at all is being covered up. Phew. Like I sometimes do engage in a little bit of snark, but it's not directed. I try really hard not to be like, you specific person are an idiot and your mom's ugly. Do you know what I mean? I try really hard not to get involved in that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other vices or continual things that you're grappling with?
Sometimes as much as I encourage people to not be discouraged in doing good, I do think that's a really important thing that we have to remind ourselves of.
Yeah.
Don't be discouraged in doing good, because it's easy to be discouraged. That's human nature. Sometimes I am prone to feeling discouraged. Sometimes I am like, you know what? Nobody will miss me. What if I just never posted a single thing on the internet again? Would anybody even notice? Sometimes I convince myself that they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And that what I'm up to really actually is pretty meaningless. And I'm just twisting at windmills and, nobody cares. Yeah. So that's something that I do. I have to try to propensity that I have to try to rein in sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One recent article, much discussed article, you discussed an instance in which you got I think it was a DM that was very vile. You were called in conjunction with the F word, the C word, and this horribly demeaning message. Would you kind of share a little bit of that story with us?
Yeah. I'm used to getting nasty DMs. It's not unusual for me to get mean messages, right? Like any creator of size who's doing anything other than, even people who are doing innocuous things like making cookies get ridiculous comments. Do you know what I mean? You're like, it's a cookie. It's a chocolate chip cookie. Back off. Even people like that get nasty comments. But when you mix in highly charged topics, related to current events, it does tend to rile people up no matter how gently you try to handle them. And so the nasty messages are nothing really new. And there's sort of almost a vanilla flavor nasty message that I'm like, oh yeah, one of those doesn't even faze me. You know what I mean? Like you're just stupid, whatever. I'm so used to it at this point that it's almost like it's just water off a duck's back. But sometimes the messages are so eye-popping that it's shocking to even me. And the message that you're referring to that I've written about was somebody who obviously disagreed with something that I was saying. And it was a man, and that's noteworthy because the majority of my audience is women. So, it's more unusual to get DMs from men just because there are fewer men in my audience. It was from a man who said I was an effing C word, amongst other things. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I do not know you from Adam. You definitely, who are you to make this sort of assessment of me? So, of course, out of curiosity, I clicked on his profile, which he was just using his full legal name as his profile username, was not attempting to hide his identity, was not feeling emboldened by oh yeah, my username is, user 12345, where no one will ever know that it's me saying this. He had a profile picture. He had his full username. It was then from there not difficult at all to find him on Facebook, and because he has the same exact full legal name and the same exact profile picture on Facebook, and to quickly, I'm talking, it took me 2 minutes to find this out, that he is the husband of an elected official in the United States. And there were lots of pictures of them on his profile where they're vacationing together, a picture of the two of them in a tropical location, where she's tagged. You can, and this is all public on Facebook. You can click on her profile, and her profile is more locked down, probably because she's an elected official, but you can still see a handful of the pictures that he has on his profile. So then another couple quick Google searches found that, yes, in fact, this elected official is married to a man named this thing. And then from there, it was not difficult to find his LinkedIn and to find that he has positions on a number of boards, a number of charities and nonprofits, some of them including children's nonprofits and charities. And I really began to think to myself, would I want this man working with my 11-year-old child on a nonprofit? Would I be okay with sending my child to an event that this person is hosting or putting on, when this is the kind of language he uses for women who are strangers? I was, initially, torn about what should I do about this scenario? There's a few different options. One, you can publicly call him out and be like, this man who is here, here's a picture, here's a screenshot of the message, here's a screenshot of his profile picture, here's him on LinkedIn, etc. And sometimes that's the choice creators make. There's pros and cons to that. You could ignore it, pretend you never saw it. There's pros and cons to that. Ultimately, I decided to send his wife a message and to ask, do you know that this is what your husband is out here doing? That he's out here making you're associated with this. Not that every spouse controls their spouse. I don't think that. I don't think that we're in control of everything our spouse says. But listen, if I were an elected official and that was my husband, I would want to know if my husband was saying that to random women on the internet. And then I realized that she definitely knows that's how he is. If he's willing to say it to me, he is for sure saying it to her. There's no question that she already knows what kind of man he is. What people do behind closed doors is usually much worse than what they are willing to put a public face to. So this is who he was willing to be to my face using his legal name. There's no question in my mind that she already knows what kind of man he is. I did send her a message. She never responded. And I did then decide to contact I contacted the boards that I could see, the nonprofit boards that I could see that he was on. My husband is on many nonprofit boards. I get asked to serve on nonprofit boards all the time. As a nonprofit board member, I would also want to know what kind of person that is representing my organization.
Yeah.
I think they have a right to know, especially if you're working with children.
Yeah.
So I did contact them. But it illustrates what I'm working with out here. It illustrates what it's like to be a creator on the internet sometimes.
Right. Well, let me ask this question. You also noted in the article that you wrote about this experience that when you went to find this person's profile, that he had something like, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And you say at one point, after reaching out to a lot of other 100 people, you said, with large platforms, asking them about their experiences with hate, and you say, quote, nearly every single person reported the same findings. The people sending the messages are overwhelmingly white Christians who want you to know they are Christians via public proclamation, end quote. I mean, there's so much that could be said about that. But I'm wondering, I think for me, the part that really stood out, because in some ways that doesn't necessarily surprise me from some of my own experience, but it's the observation, it's overwhelmingly white Christians who want you to know they are Christians via public proclamation. That is just that's so fascinating to me. What would you say is going on there in that sort of dynamic?
Well, geez, that is a whole book worth of stuff to tease out. And there actually have been a few people who have written books on these kinds of phenomenons. But I do think I truly do believe that if you were to survey any creator of size, they would confirm those findings. They would tell you that it is a specific flavor of Christianity that, I don't want anyone I want to speak carefully because I don't want anyone to listen to this and think that I am anti-Christian or that I am disparaging the Christian faith or any of those types of things, because that's not my intent at all. I'm reporting true things that happened to me. And people should know what the situation is, so that they can accurately understand what it's like. So I do think this is indicative of this political moment. And there have actually been other political moments that have also brought out this kind of behavior. But in this political moment where political identity has become more important to people than their religious faith, and when white Christian nationalism has taken such a prominent seat at the table, white Christian nationalism co-opts the language and the symbols of Christianity for political power. That is what it does. And, most people who truly value their faith will tell you, like, those people don't represent my faith. Those people are not, they're not real, representatives of what we should be doing and believing and teaching. And it pains them. It pains them to see that this is the face of a belief system that they truly hold dear and that shapes every aspect of their life. That it's painful to want to be associated with that. That violence, harm, a lack of care for the poor, a lack of care for the elderly, the widowed, the disabled, the sick, that these things have been cast out of a very ancient and deep tradition in favor of the seizure of the means of power, in favor of empire. And so I truly do think what is at the root of it is an obsession with political power and a conflation of religious identity and political power.
Yeah. A Time magazine article indicated that you're a Christian. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. In what ways would you describe the way the Christian faith has informed your approach to what you do?
I really, to me, these are in many ways, the best analogy I can give you is America's founding principles, right? Like, we have these principles of democracy, like the rule of law and the pluralism, and we have fair and free elections, and like, we could sit here and tease out all the different, equality under the law, all of these different principles of democracy, and those things are meant to be infused throughout our public life. They're meant to be infused throughout our how government functions and how the country runs. So to me, the way that my own beliefs function is much the same. They're guiding principles that I try to infuse throughout all of the work that I do. I have no desire to to tell people what the right beliefs are, or to tell people that you should ascribe to this set of religious principles or that one. That I don't view that as my role at all. I'm not in any way a pastor or a theologian, or like I have no aspirations to be any of those things. But to me, it's a guiding set of principles that I feel like is infused in everything that I try to do.
Yeah, thank you. So let me try to hold two questions I've asked you together. One, the one I just asked you about your faith and that description that you gave us, along with an earlier thing that we've discussed about, seeking when possible to have some sort of collaboration, honoring, love even of enemies, and which is obviously something that's significant in the teachings of Jesus. But again, I want to kind of turn that question on its head just a second and ask this: the call to love one's enemies presumes one has enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to ask you, give us, if possible, do you have a set of characteristics that would describe who's generally going to fall into your enemy bucket?
Sure do. I could print you up. I could print you up a bingo card. I legitimately could print you up a bingo card, and then we could compare every single hate message I get, and you would have bingo in 5 moves.
Would you give us some of those? What's on your bingo card?
They are overwhelmingly white evangelical Christians. Overwhelmingly, that is who tells me to kill myself. That's who wishes me bodily harm. That's who is sending me AI pictures of myself being sexually assaulted. That is overwhelmingly who it is. Often they are people with children or grandchildren that they are showcasing in their profile, if their profile is public. A lot of times it's private, so I can't see them. But they tend to be seemingly married with children or married with grandchildren, white evangelical Christians. I certainly have not done a study of like, what do y'all do for a living? I couldn't tell you. I don't have enough information to sort of from their profiles to tell you those kinds of other demographics. But it's not even. I can tell you there is a theme related to law enforcement or the military, which is unfortunate. I have a lot of both law enforcement and military in my family. I do not see these groups as enemies in any way. My dad was a disabled veteran who died of his war-related injuries, right? I have nothing but respect and compassion for people who have served their country. And I'm very open about that. So those are just 2 maybe slightly lower on the totem pole themes that I see. But, you know who I don't see telling me to kill myself are Christians of color. You know who I don't see telling me to kill myself are people who go to a Lutheran church or who go to some mainline Protestant denomination. I don't see members of the LDS church telling me to kill myself. If I were a Martian who had no understanding of the cultural history of the United States and had no emotional attachment to one specific set of religious beliefs or another, there's 0% chance I would choose the most violent and hateful religious group. And I say this with no malice. I know that I might sound insistent because I am, but this truly does not come from a place of malice of like, I hate all of y'all. To the contrary. But I do think it's important that people know this is happening. I do think that some of y'all better come get your friends. I do think that some of these pastors need to get off of YouTube and to start actually dealing with some of these issues head on instead of trying to generate clicks. I do think that there is a lot that needs to be addressed from inside the house. From inside the house. And if people do not know that there is a fire, then they are not going to address it. So that's why I bring it up. Not because I have animosity or hate, but because there's a fire inside the house.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing about that. You're in Minnesota, grew up in Minnesota, and then of course the recent violence in Minnesota, assassination of Melissa Hortman, her husband, attempted assassination of John Hoffman and his wife. What's that experience done to you? What's it stirred up in you?
When I read that Vance Belter, the man who's accused of assassinating the Hortmans and attempting to assassinate the Hoffmans, and had actually tried to go to other people's homes that night and was not successful. When I read that he had a hit list that had over 70 people on it, many of them Minnesotans, some of them people from neighboring states or had other national prominence, but many of them were well-known Minnesotans who were politically active. My very first thought was that there's a good chance that I could be on that list. Because Melissa Hortman certainly is well known in the Minnesota legislature. She's the former Speaker of the Minnesota House. She's well known if you are connected in state politics. But frankly, most Americans couldn't tell you who even represents them in their state legislature. Do you know what I mean? Most Americans, they probably know their congressperson or their senator, but they couldn't tell you who represents their district in the state legislature. Overwhelmingly, that's true. And they certainly couldn't tell you who represents somebody else in the state legislature. So although the Hortmans and the Hoffmans were well known in Minnesota legislative politics, they were far from household names. Far from household names. Melissa Hortman doesn't represent me. So I know who she is because I pay attention to these things, but none of the people I know, we live 150 miles from her district. None of the people that I know had any idea who she was. So the reason I bring that up is that Vance Belter did not live in her district either. He had to do, he lived about an hour away from where she lived. He had to do research into who she was. I would argue that potentially more people in Minnesota know who I am than know who she is. And I am not an elected official, so I am not out here making policies for other people. But Vance Belter fits the bingo card, Lee, of white evangelical Christian, white Christian nationalist type figure. And so my very first thought was, I was on vacation, by the way, when this happened. And my very first thought was, I wonder if they do, would law enforcement call me if I was on the list? Would they even tell me, or what would happen? I don't know I don't know what the protocol is. Do you call people that are on a hit list? I don't know what the protocol is, especially if you have the suspect in custody. Do you call people? I don't know. I still don't know. My presumption is that I'm not on the list because other people who were on the list were notified. There's a senator from Minnesota who was on the list. The attorney general was on the list, and they came out and said, law enforcement told me that I was on the list.
Yeah.
No, law enforcement never called me. So my assumption is that I'm not, but they also never published the list to my knowledge. So, I do live, like I said, I live a couple of hours away from him, but he didn't let that hour drive that he had to make to Melissa Hortman's house stop him. The fact that he had that many people on a list and that he had all kinds of weaponry and plans, and it's absolutely not out of the question that I could have been on that list. And I mentioned earlier that I'm not a reactionary. I'm not naturally a paranoid person. I'm not somebody who's constantly looking for the boogeyman around every corner. So for me to have that be sort of my knee-jerk reaction, and to be honest, the most telling thing was my husband, who is perhaps the most optimistic person you will ever meet. Slightly infuriatingly optimistic sometimes, where he truly believes everything's going to work out, like almost all the time. His initial reaction was, I wonder if Sharon's on that list. And so he does not have this sort of like, again, he's not a pessimist reactionary of like, oh, everyone hates Sharon. His view is everyone loves you. He only sees the people who come up to me in public and are like, Sharon, thank you so much for your work. It's so good to see you. Like I did a big book tour. He came to several of those events. He came to my book tour event in Nashville, which by the way is one of the best audiences in the country, in my opinion. He is just like so proud, and it genuinely brings him so much joy to see other people enjoy me. Like when I am at a show and I'm doing a show and like the audience is cheering for me, like the grin on his face is just like, he's so proud. He's so proud. So he doesn't read the DMs, right? Like he only hears what I tell him. He's not inside my Instagram account. He doesn't read my emails. His view is that of everybody loves Sharon. Look, like people come up to her at the Target and the restaurant and the theater, and all my friends love her. And that's his natural viewpoint. And so for him, his initial reaction is, oh no, I wonder if she's on that list. That tells you a lot. That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
And it's very sobering. It's a very, very sobering thought. Is he the only man who could do something like that? I don't think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in writing about that, you described some of that experience that you just described for us. And yet you go on to say, here's what I do know. You can't scare me into silence. And you go on and say, I have no desire to be chosen, that is to be on that list. But if I am forced to help lead the rise of the resistance, then I would do all I could to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly into the arena. I would keep doing the next needed thing. I would light someone else's candle with my single flame. And then you also say, if history will remember our names, let it be because we did more than criticize and wring our hands. So I don't know if you can say it quite any better than that, but any sort of closing note of encouragement in that regard?
Yeah. I want people to know that I do not have some kind of like superhuman ability to like withstand this type of situation. And so when people feel overwhelmed and downtrodden and discouraged, I don't want them to say, well, I could never be like her. I could never do that. I don't have what it takes. I want people to know that I don't have some kind of superhuman skills to potentially think about my name on a hit list. I sure don't. What we can all do is the next needed thing. That is something that is available to every single one of us, because the next needed thing will look different based on our vantage point, based on our resources, based on where we are in time and space. What was needed in 1850 is different than what's needed now. And that's the beauty of that as a concept, is that it's available to every single one of us. It does not require some superhuman ability. It does not require billions of dollars. It doesn't require millions of followers. It doesn't require the ability to step on stage or write a best-selling book. That every single one of us has access to the next needed thing. And I want people to know that that's what they have to.
Been talking to New York Times bestselling author, America's government teacher, Sharon McMahon. You can follow Sharon on social media at Sharon Says So. And you can come join Sharon and me for a wonderful night here in Nashville, the Sunday night prior to Thanksgiving, November 23, at the spectacular Schermerhorn Symphony Hall for a big end-of-year blowout and live show. Tickets are on sale now. You can get more information at nosmallendeavor.com. Sharon, thanks for the wonderful conversation today, and we're really looking forward to you coming to Nashville here briefly.
I'm so excited to see you. Thanks, Lee.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice, and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal, and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Our thanks to all the stellar team that makes this show possible: Christy Bragg, Jacob Lewis, Carriet Harmon, Jason Cheesley, Sophie Byard, Kate Hayes, Mary Evelyn Brown, and Audrey Griffith. Our theme song was composed by Tim Lauer. Thanks for listening, and let's keep exploring what it means to live a good life together. No Small Endeavor is a production of Tokens Media, LLC, and
Great Feeling Studio.